Hi guys, I'm just checking in here because I just recorded this entire podcast and then I realized I forgot to hit the record button. So we're going to do this all over again. We're going to bring the energy, we're going to match the energy, and we're going to talk and discuss softball. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Welcome back in for another episode of the Right Bench Podcast. My name is Julia Kennedy, and we just wrapped up some fan-freaking-tastic softball coming out of the Clearwater Invitational. We'll break down everything that we saw out of that tournament. We'll visit some new top 25 rankings, see how those things shook up. We're going to talk about major upsets that we saw. And of course, we're bringing back, I have now added a second segment that we're going to do here. I'm calling it Mid-Major Magic. We're going to dive into that. And then we're going to cap off the episode with some fun facts as well. I got to come up with a more creative name, just fun fact or fun stats, but got to spend some time brainstorming on that. Diving right into it, the Clearwater Invitational, it brought us more than just top matchups, right, early on. And out of every team in this tournament, even though, like, it's not like a bracket setup tournament where you have, like, a title game, and then you have, like, winner, win a title and championship trophy and all that stuff. It's really just kind of like a pool play kind of setup. Even though there was no winner, I really truly believe the clear winner coming out of this tournament was the Tennessee Volunteers. And if anybody has an argument with me about that, I mean, I don't know, go rewatch the tournament and then come back and talk to me with a different opinion. They took down 8th ranked Nebraska 4-1. They shut out James Madison 11-0. They then ruled Florida Atlantic 8-0, which JMU, Florida Atlantic, two very good mid-major programs right there. Then they turn around and ruled 7th-ranked UCLA 11-0. Huge win for them right there. And then they capped off the weekend with a strong 9-1 win over the Florida State Seminoles. But no surprise to anybody, they are now the ranked number 1 team in the country, and they continue to remain undefeated. We'll dive into those rankings a little bit later. But, the Vols, they have great defense. Yeah, they have great hitting. Their pitching is phenomenal. I'm talking like chef's kiss. So freaking good right now. And Carlin Pickens, I don't know. You might have heard of her. I've heard of her. I've talked about her a little bit on here. You want to know a little bit about her? Yeah. Ask me about her ERA. Yeah, it's pretty good. It is a 0.0. ERA is literally just 0. She is outstanding. I mean, we saw her last year. She was outstanding last year, right? I mean, the girl throws straight gas. It's no surprise to anybody. But when you can go through the preseason that Tennessee has gone through and you still have a literal 0 ERA, you might be like kind of good at your sport. I don't know. It's food for thought right there. But, when you talk about Tennessee's pitching, like, yeah, obviously she's a big part of it. Yeah, she's their ace. Everything kind of centers around her a little bit, but you also got to talk and consider about their staff as a whole, right? As a whole, they also lead the country in this stat with a 0.33 ERA. And it's not like they've played an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination. And what stands out to me from them, I guess, most this season is, yeah, they win games. Right? They find a way to win games, but it's not just finding a way. They dominate these games. I'm talking shutout after shutout, run rule after run rule. This team dominates defensively, in the circle, in the box. And if you pay attention to their hitting, what I really like is they strike fast. They're aggressive. They're first pitch swinging at strikes. They're swinging the bat hard, right? I can't tell you how many times I see it in games, or I even see it with some of the girls that I train with, right? Like, they've got less than 2 strikes on them, and they're taking a defensive swing. What is a defensive swing? A defensive swing is maybe you're unsure if it's a strike or not, but your bat is already going and you're stuck in that I don't know. And so then it's kind of like a half swing, half effort. It's not a hard swing. And then usually you hit a little blooper ground ball, and then it's like a waste of an at bat. I get it when you have 2 strikes on you, especially when you're just trying to protect and battle and kind of extend your at bat a little bit. But when you have less than 2 strikes on you, you should be like taking daddy hacks. And I'll be so honest. I did not have that mindset for my first 2 years of college. I didn't. I knew, like, obviously swing hard, right? Don't be hesitant. But I didn't have the thought process of like, you got to swing the bat freaking hard. And it wasn't until I started playing with Carly Spade. I mean, Carly Spade, if you knew anything about her, I mean, her home runs is insane. Even though she was younger than me, I learned so much from her in those 2 years that we spent playing together. And a lot of it was just impulsivity. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That can be a bad things at times, but it's like controlled impulsiveness, right? She goes into the box, and it's like once she gets that impulsiveness of like, okay, that's a pitch I got to swing at, she swings for the freaking fences every single time. And I mean, it speaks for herself. Look at her stats. Look at her home run numbers. I mean, she's insane. She's literally insane. And what I liked about her is she did not have that fear or the insecurity of like just taking a huge swing and miss. It never slowed her down. Never slowed her down. That's what I loved. Like, she'd go up there and she'd have sometimes, she's going to hate me talking about this right now, but she would take the biggest swing and miss sometimes where I'm like, girl, what were you swinging at? What were you looking at? Like, sometimes I'm like, dang, that pitch wasn't even close. But that did not slow her down at all. The very next pitch, she would still take a huge daddy hack. And I would say majority of the time, after she had a huge swing and miss, the next one was like 50 feet past the outfield fence. It was landing on top of our hitting facility in right field, over the roof, over our scoreboard in center field. So, and to be fair, like, she was a grad assistant at Tennessee last year. Maybe that kind of translated over, into there with what she was doing over there. I'm not quite sure, but I really like that Tennessee's kind of having that approach right now. They're finding out a way to take hard swings, but keep them short and compact. And that's why they're having so much success right now at the plate. I also thought that Georgia had a really impressive record coming out of Clearwater. And I'll be completely honest, in my first couple episodes here and while recording the podcast, but also just like kind of talking to myself a little bit, like, Georgia was not a team that I was ever really thinking about. They weren't a program that I was, we got to, keep my eye out on them. It's like, yeah, they're a really good program. Absolutely. They're a top 25 ranked team. They're in the SEC. They have a ton of success, but I don't know. They just kind of like coasted by me. And, maybe that's my fault for not paying attention to them as much as probably I should have. But coming out of this tournament, they've definitely caught my eye. I thought they had a really good showing out in Clearwater, and they actually lost their first game of the tournament. It was a 5-6 loss to Oklahoma State. But then after that, they won out the rest of the weekend. It's kind of like they just put that loss behind them and was kind of, eyes focused on the road ahead of them. And I really liked that. They had some big wins over Nebraska as well as NC State, UCF, Northwestern, and then they actually ruled ranked Duke 9-1, that game in 5 innings. And I'll tell you what, they got some studs on that team. They got some studs with some big bats. Sarah Gordon, Emily Digby, the Coastal Carolina transferred Kirsten Roos. I got to cover her a lot at Coastal Carolina. So cool to see her having success now. She's leadoff hitter for them, starting second baseman. I mean, you look at the top half of their lineup. I mean, they are just huge run producers right now. This is a lineup with big potential in the SEC come later this spring. And, you know, in a conference like the SEC where you have a Tennessee, you have Texas, you have Oklahoma, you have Florida, it's super, super easy to get overlooked and overshadowed in this conference. And, you know, if I had to put my money on it as of today when I'm recording this episode, as of now, the team that I've been most impressed with as far as defense, offense, pitching, firing on all cylinders, it's been Tennessee, without a doubt. And I hate kind of saying that because they're the number one team in the country, but it's just true. I mean, show me a better team, a better program right now that is firing on all cylinders other than Tennessee to that elite competition level. I don't think there is one. So Tennessee is a team I could see outright winning the SEC regular season. But when you get to that SEC tournament and you're trying to win your automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, the postseason tournament, I could very easily see a team like Georgia kind of upsetting Tennessee right there, right? God forbid Tennessee, man, you know, a team like them, they suffer an injury here or there. Things like that happen all the time, and teams have to figure out how to adjust to those things because they happen to every single team. But that is a place where, you know, with the SEC on any given day, pretty much any team can win on any given day. So that is going to be interesting come postseason, come the SEC tournament. I feel like Georgia is going to come in a little under the radar, but I think they could be very sneaky and kind of be that silent killer in the postseason. Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't wrap up our post Clearwater Invitational recap without talking about the obvious. I mean, I'm talking about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I've talked about them like every single episode, but I'll tell you guys, I'm so for their program right now. And I have no reason to be. I don't know anybody that lives in Nebraska. I have never been to the state of Nebraska. I don't know anybody that went to school there. Like, I have literally no ties. Literally no ties. But I am so for this program right now. I am like their biggest super fan right now. They took down the number one team in the country. They took down the Texas Tech Raiders and handed them their first loss of the season. And I did not realize this stat until I was actually watching the game, and it popped up as a graphic on the screen. So thank you to whoever the producers were out in Clearwater for putting that stat on there because I did not register this. This is the second time in 3 weeks of play where Nebraska has taken down the number one team in the country. They took down Texas earlier. Now they're taking down Texas Tech. Like, the fact that Nebraska has now shown on more than one occasion that they're capable of competing with the big dogs, I love it. I'm so here for it. And I think after this weekend in the Mary Nutter, they're gonna face some more hard competition, absolutely. I think once you kind of figure out how they're gonna do here, and if they come out on a positive note, if I'm a Cornhuskers fan right now, especially softball program, I'm setting aside money every month to save up to start looking at buying Women's College World Series tickets, flights, hotels, all that good stuff. Because I guarantee you they very well will be finding a spot in those top 8 teams in the Women's College World Series. And you know, worst case scenario, they don't make it. Now you have like a saved up pile cash reserve that you can go invest in the stock market. You know, make good financial decisions. I'll tell you what, Nebraska is super impressed with them. I think they've kind of showed to the world that they do deserve a spot in Oklahoma City. And I'm super excited to see where their season goes for the rest of 2026. And to kind of transition, I'm kind of at a cool place right now in my life, right? I get to watch a million softball games on TV, which gives me the opportunity to create content like this and work on my podcast. And I genuinely love this. I love being a nerd geek, talking college softball, to my few listeners, my few but loyal listeners. I'm so proud, and I genuinely enjoy it. But what makes me kind of even better at my job is with my broadcasting, kind of, using both aspects of my life right now. And what's cool with the broadcasting is, I get to call games at South Carolina where I get to see some bigger schools. But then I also call games at Charleston Southern where I get to see schools and research schools and talk about schools that I probably would not be paying any attention to. No offense. It's just the way that it is. It's just the way that it is. But this past weekend, I got to call a doubleheader over there with the Buccaneers in North Charleston, and I got to call Sacred Heart as well as UConn. And let me tell you, I was so impressed with this UConn program. And I'm not talking about just the way that they played softball. I'm really talking about the program as a whole. And I had the ability to talk with their head coach earlier in the week, head coach Laura Valentino, and she was just awesome. Man, she was just awesome. She was so professional, but she was also so casual. It was like this weird balance that was like, wait, like I feel like I could take a lot of professional advice from you, but also like I kind of want to be your friend. Like she's probably thinking I'm really weird right now for saying that. It was just a really cool balance in conversation, and she's just a really great human being, which seems to be rare these days. But we also, we talked about the current team that she has right now, but we also talked about all the success that she's had with these Huskies program over the last 6 years or so. And, the more I'm talking with her and the more I'm doing my research, I'm like trying to look at all the other coaches on staff right now. And I look at their pitching coach and I'm like, crap, that's G. Juarez. Did you guys know G. Juarez is the pitching coach at UConn? And if you guys don't know who G. Juarez is, you obviously were not a college softball fan from the span of 2017 to 2021, because she was the face of pitching in college softball during that time frame. She started out at Arizona State. I mean, Arizona State was like good during that time. Not that they're not good now, but they were, a very, very high competitive top 25 ranked team consistently. And then she made the switch over to Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Sooners. And then in that 2021 year, I believe that was her senior year, she ended up winning the national championship with them. And she was a huge part of that. She was a huge part of the reason why they won. I believe the title that she earned was, I keep on forgetting it. It's like not MVP. It's like, I think it's most outstanding player of the Women's College World Series. I believe that was the title that she earned in 2021. And it's just cool to see her now in a professional role and see how she's kind of starting this next stage of her life. And UConn's head coach, Coach Valentino, she told me a story. They have a freshman pitcher. It's their ace. Her name's Caprice Bomer, I believe is her name. I got to cover her a little bit. But she told me her first couple weeks on campus working in the bullpen with G, she was just like so starstruck, which I don't blame her as well. I would probably be too. I mean, it's kind of the same vibes when Kat Osterman was working with the Texas State program during like, what was that, like 2017 to 2020? Like, you're telling me you recruit a pitcher, she comes in and she's not going to get starstruck by Kat Osterman? I find that very hard to believe. It's just so cool to see these players that have had such great success in their college years. And obviously Kat Osterman playing with Team USA, all those great things that she's accomplished. Now she's a general manager with Athletes Unlimited for the Volts out of Texas. But it's just so cool to see kind of how they're able to transition and still have that effect on girls. But, going back to UConn, I'll tell you what, this pitching staff as a whole, they impressed me. They didn't pitch scared. They attacked hitters. they just were really fun to watch. Offensively, I liked how aggressive they were, and they had this good balance of being aggressive, but also having plate discipline, which is kind of ironic because their head coach was telling me that the week prior to that, they really struggled with plate discipline. So she must have kind of jumped their shorts a little bit, and that's the reason why they got better. But just so cool. And they're a team that can definitely make back-to-back NCAA regional appearances coming out of the Big East. So super excited to see how they do with the rest of their season. Now, that doubleheader was on Friday, and then on Saturday, I got to go up to Columbia, South Carolina to call a doubleheader with the Gamecocks. There they took on Boston and Kennesaw State. And Kennesaw State, super interesting situation right now with their program. Their head coach they got a new head coach. Their head coach has this like insane resume. Coach Selena Collins Patterson. She has this super insane resume, both as a player to, a collegiate player to playing in college to playing with Team USA. And then she was a professor at Kennesaw State for 10 years. And then she transferred into this coaching role, like kind of a crazy story. She got hired in September of this last year. Well, the problem was when she got hired, they only had a roster of 16 players. 16 players. So she was like, obviously, I need to go pick up players in the transfer portal. Well, the problem was when she picked him up, a lot of the players weren't available. She was only able to grab grad student transfers. And even then, if she did grab a grad transfer student, they would have to sit out for the season because of eligibility. And she wouldn't even be able to have them on her team until next season. So she got put in a pretty crappy situation, is just kind of making the best of what she's got right now. And I think she has the potential to turn this Kennesaw State program around for the better. It's just going to take time and development, really. But I think she absolutely has the ability to do that. But so it was really cool. It was really great to see South Carolina have great success against Kennesaw, as well as Boston, who's a really good mid-major as well. But it's as they should, right? As they should. You're an SEC program. You're a top 25 ranked team. As you should have success against these other programs that aren't ranked. And I had somebody ask me after that weekend, I believe it was on Monday of this week, they were like, so what do you think of the South Carolina softball team right now? And I could tell what the underlying question that they were really asking was, how far do I think they're going to make it into the postseason? And I've seen them play a lot. I've seen them have success. I've seen them not have their best moments. And honestly, my answer was, ask me after this weekend. Ask me after this weekend. This weekend, they're competing in the Mary Netter Classic. You'll see them competing against Nebraska, Oregon, Washington. I believe they're playing UCLA. They're going to be playing a lot of great competition come this weekend. Now, the problem is their preseason schedule up till now, the only ranked team they've played is Virginia Tech. They played them twice, and they lost both games. And they didn't play their best softball as a team. It's not like Virginia Tech just flat out beat them. I mean, they did. But South Carolina they did not play their best during those two games. And so I haven't seen South Carolina's best. I don't think I have so far. And so to ask me to measure their success or predict what their postseason is going to look like when I'm measuring their success against unranked teams, I just don't think that's a fair assessment. So I'm going to revisit that conversation after this weekend, and hopefully I'll have a little bit of a better understanding of kind of what they look like. But I think this weekend is really, really important for them, because they're kind of falling down the rankings right now. And, they pick up a couple good wins here this weekend that'll definitely keep them in, at least maybe boost them up a little bit. But this is kind of their first real test in the preseason. And that's going to kind of, give a little inside scoop as to what the rest of their season is going to look like. But let's dive into some mid-major magic, guys. I love that. Now, we saw some greatness, and it's just so awesome to see. So let's talk about this program that actually really made a name for themselves last season. And this is kind of what I was like kind of hinting at earlier. Like, there's a lot of programs, whether it's like mid majors or small division ones, that I genuinely either have never heard of before or just like didn't know that they were good at softball until regionals during the selections show. And it's just because they just don't get the attention that basically all the top 25s or Power 4 schools do. That's really what it comes down to. So, like, it's really interesting, obviously, now with me calling games over at Charleston Southern. I get to see, different scope of schools, a different pool of schools that I get to kind of look at. So I'm kind of cool with that. But let's talk about one program that really made a name for themselves last season. And to be so honest, I did not know this school existed until last season. And I feel awful admitting that because I pride myself on knowing as many schools and their mascots as well. Yeah, I didn't even know the school existed until regionals last season. And what's kind of cool is they were able to continue the success from last season into this season, even though they lost a lot of talent from last year to this year. They're still able to find ways to have a lot of success, which I think is really cool seeing that out of them. I also think they have arguably the coolest mascot in all of college sports. I actually did not know what their mascot was. Well, like I mean, obviously now that I know what it is, but like the animal that it is, I didn't know what that was until I moved here to South Carolina. But we are talking about the ospreys of North Florida. And an osprey is just a sick bird. Like, it is so cool. They basically live on the coastal areas of like the southeast coast. So like we have them here in South Carolina, which is really cool. You'll see them, along the coast of like Georgia and like Savannah, as well as down into Florida. If you ever get to look it up, just like look it up and look at ospreys. They're pretty cool animals, but it's a cool mascot. I know that you're probably like, yeah, that is a pretty cool mascot. I think it's different. It's different. But talking about their program, 11 wins so far on the season, including their first win of the season was a run rule victory over Auburn. That was pretty cool. A win over a very competitive Marshall program. They're a team out of the Sun Belt I would be keeping my eyes on. I would not be surprised if we see them making a big postseason run for that Sun Belt tournament title. They're trying to fight for their bid into regionals. They're doing that all while they're tied, leading the country in shutouts. 6 shutouts on the season through 13 games played. Now, a big part of their success last year was their pitching staff. And in turn, that's kind of what's a big part of their success now, which is crazy because they basically lost their ace last year, who was also leading the team in batting average. That was Allison Benning. So pretty cool that they're still able to find that success. But they ranked 15th in the country right now with an ERA as a staff of 2.02. And while yes, it is a collective effort, I've said that about every staff on this program, and you will probably hear me say that every single time. That's a lie. Not every single time. For the majority of the time, you will hear me saying that. There are a couple programs where they literally have one ace and that's it. But UNF does a good job of sharing their love. But a big part of it is Cameron Ponick. And I'm so sorry if I said your name wrong. Did my best there, Cameron Ponick. But she's tied for first in the country. And can't believe we're revisiting this. But she actually matches Carlin Pickens' ERA of a 0.0 ERA. And it's not like she, threw one out and she's got a 0 ERA. This is through over 17 innings pitched. So she's having a ton of success right now. And I think their biggest Achilles heel as a program is their strength of schedule. You look at their schedule, it's just not necessarily very competitive. The only big teams that they have on their schedule was their first game of the year against unranked Auburn. Actually, Auburn's kind of come back from that and had pretty good, a couple big wins here. I would not be surprised if they're ranked come next weekend, probably in that like 23, 24, 25. But I wouldn't be surprised if they enter the top 25 rankings. I think they've kind of deserved that. They dropped a pair of games to Florida, and it'd be one thing if they kept it close. It wasn't. It wasn't. And then the only other big team on their schedule is Florida State. And when you talk about RPI is so tremendously important to teams and programs, and a big part of measuring that is your strength of schedule. That plays a huge role into measuring a team's RPI. And RPI is really important into determining your postseason success. And I'll be so honest, like I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this. I did not understand what RPI was until I was at least a freshman in college. At least a freshman in college. And that wasn't even like, like my first week on campus. No, it was like mid-season when I found out what RPI was. And RPI is something that is so confusing for everybody to understand. It is complicated, but it is something that as a college softball player, I don't care if you're Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, I don't care. You need to know what RPI is because it impacts the potential of you having success in the postseason. And if you don't understand how to raise your RPI, that's like the head coach. Like if y'all don't understand that, that's a freaking problem. That is a freaking problem. And a big reason why I get like so mad at teams and programs that don't schedule a hard preseason, especially the small D1s and the mid-majors. I'm like, you're not even giving yourself a fighting chance to even try to make it to the NCAA tournament. You're not. I think I'm going to do an episode on RPI later, probably closer to May, just to kind of like fully explain it, just because, like I said, it's just so important to the postseason. Basically, to just kind of sum up why it's so important, if you win your conference tournament, your conference postseason tournament, you receive an automatic bid to the NCAA regionals. If you don't, your only chance at getting to regionals is through an at-large bid. And that is when the committee determines if you deserve a spot in regionals. And basically how they measure that deservingness is by RPI. I don't know if it's the top 62 or top 64 teams in the RPI rankings. Those are like 99% of the time the teams that are all going to be in the NCAA postseason tournament. So, it's like they're a team where like, because they don't have a strong schedule, they have to win the ASUN tournament. If they don't win the ASUN tournament, kind of like I was talking earlier, like with Tennessee, like, I don't know, they get an injury, right? Their star pitcher gets an injury. And maybe you drop the game in the tournament, even though you won the regular season, it doesn't matter. You're not going to regionals because you did not have a good strength of schedule and you didn't pick up enough competitive wins. And it sucks for mid-majors, right? Because you know what? Here, I'll give this example. We're actually seeing this kind of unfold right now with men's basketball at Miami University. The Miami University men's basketball team competes in the Mid-American tournament, or the Mid-American Conference. It is a mid-major. It's the conference I competed in. They are currently the only undefeated men's basketball team in the program. In the country. They are 26-0. And we're having talks right now on ESPN, SportsCenter, Hot Take. Yes, I'm looking at you, Stephen A. Smith. We're having talks right now about if Miami is going to have a spot in the March Madness tournament. What do you mean if? If they're 26-0. They're the only undefeated team left in the country. They lead the country in almost all scoring categories. I'm talking about 3-point percentage, field goal percentage, free throw percentage. They average don't quote me on this, but close to 90 points a game is what they're averaging. And you want to have a conversation about how they may not have a spot in March Madness, the March Madness tournament? God forbid they lose their conference tournament to a team like Akron, who is very good. And we did beat them, I believe, in overtime. It was a close game, though. Maybe the next time we play each other in the conference tournament championship game, it goes Akron's way. Okay, so Miami now has one loss on the entire season, and you're going to have an argument about how they don't have a good enough spot or a good enough record or preseason schedule that they don't deserve a spot in March Madness. This grinds my freaking gears because the SEC teams like the SEC and the Big Ten, they don't have a problem with this because their whole conference, I would usually say 70% of their conferences are ranked in the top 25. So if you drop a game here or there, it's usually not the biggest, it's not the end of the world because, okay, maybe you were number 7 and you dropped a game to number 11. Okay, you dropped 1 or 2 games to the, a top 15 ranked team. So it's not the end of the world. Whereas, when you're competing in a lot of mid-major conferences, especially Miami, men's basketball right now, they're sitting at the top of the rankings. They drop 1 conference game and it hurts them tremendously. They win it and it's just kind of a lateral move that just kind of keeps you in place. It doesn't really benefit you a whole lot. But I've got to give a shout out to my girls over there at Coastal Carolina. I got to cover them when I was working in local television up there in Myrtle Beach, and I really got to know the coaching staff and the players really well, and they're just cool people. They work hard, they love to compete. They're just really cool people, and they had a big win over Arizona. They put together a really strong 7 innings, and I'll be honest, they had a great season last year. I believe they won the Sun Belt for the first time since they joined the Sun Belt because they previously were in the Big South. But at the beginning of the season, it's just really been okay. I believe they're about 500. They're not doing great. They're not doing bad. It's just really okay. But for them to get that big win over Arizona, that was pretty cool. And for a team like Coastal, right? The Sun Belt's super competitive. Maybe they don't win the Sun Belt tournament this year. This win over Arizona is hugely going to impact their RPI. And I'm going to do my best to explain it to you. Coastal beat Arizona. Arizona plays other good teams, being in the Big 12 and being a top 25 ranked team that they are. They play other really good teams as well. They play team like the Oklahoma Sooners, like they did a couple weeks ago. They beat Oklahoma. So in turn, every win that Oklahoma has impacts Coastal Carolina's RPI rankings because they beat the team that beat the team. It's so confusing. It's just you guys know that meme from Horrible Bosses where he's like this and he's got the red string going everywhere. That's kind of what it's explaining RPI. And like I said, I'm going to try to do an episode on it as we get closer just to I need to freshen up on it, and I'm sure a lot of people don't really understand it a whole lot. So just to give people a little explanation here. But we're going to jump right into the new top 25 rankings that we have. Still undefeated this season with just a jam-packed resume. The undefeated Tennessee Volunteers are now your new number 1 overall ranked team. We've got Texas Tech, Texas, Oklahoma, and Florida. They wrap up the top 5. No surprises there. And then we see Nebraska jumping up to 6th place there. And Georgia, pretty good jump for them, going from 17th to 12th. Then we took a look at LSU. I have not talked about LSU at all this season. They've also just kind of flown under my radar. Maybe they're a team that we kind of dive into next weekend. They struggled a bit this past weekend. They fell from 10th to 17th. And then we have Virginia Tech, Arizona State, South Carolina, Washington, Clemson, and then Virginia all finally wrapping up the top 25. UCF is receiving a lot of votes right now. Alongside them is Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, I just saw their new jerseys get released. They released these their colors are purple and white, but they released these like lavender jerseys. And I hate to bring like the girly girlness into sports. I think that's fun when you're like in youth, but like once you get to like the collegiate and the professional level, I don't really like it because I'm like, you're there to compete, not to like be cute. I don't know. There are some girls that can be cute and compete, and that's great for them. Unfortunately, that's just not me. That's just not my style. But I do like really love these lavender jerseys, which I didn't think I would, but really cool. I can't wait to see those in action. Also receiving votes, Auburn. Auburn had a couple big wins. I would not be surprised if we see them in the top 25 rankings next week. I would expect to see them like 23, 24, 25. Charlotte is doing phenomenal right now. They just picked up, they had a big win earlier in the season, I believe, over Virginia Tech. And I also believe they had a big win over Michigan State as well. And then most recently, they had a big time win over Clemson. So I would not be shocked if we see Charlotte as well entering those top 25 rankings. And guys, like, I'm not calling any games this week, which is weird. It's kind of like my first break, but it's kind of cool too because I get to like actually watch games now, not just like look for the highlights through like Twitter when like people clip them or just like read the box scores and try to kind of understand what happened in that game. But if you're looking for some great softball games this weekend, go check out the Mary Nutter Classic out there in California. That's going to be like your best bet for your best competition. But there's also going to be a lot of great games happening outside of that tournament as well. Alabama and Florida State will play a pair this Friday and Saturday. Those should be great games as well. I'd also check out the DeMarini Invitational out in Palo Alto, California. They've got like a really good shuffle teams out there. They're kind of doing like a round robin style. You're going to see Texas, Arizona, Stanford, and Boise State in there. Don't underestimate Boise State. Don't underestimate them. They have potential. And signing off my episode with my fun stat for y'all. We got to come up with like a good slogan name for it here. But the team leading with the most stolen bases in the country. It's actually a tie right now between Jackson State and the College of Charleston. Both of them have 34 stolen bases this season, which is crazy because there are programs that probably won't even have 34 stolen bases in a single season. And I'm pretty sure I was on one of those teams. I'm pretty sure there was a year where I think we had less than 30 stolen bases on a season. Didn't have a whole lot of speed, didn't bunt. Just like wasn't our thing. I mean, we made it work, right? We won. It's interesting to see how coaches recruit differently. Power versus speed, and then some try to do a combo, and just to see how that impacts your team and how you can utilize them as tools and stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there was one season where we didn't even have 30. So super cool for them already. Getting their speed up. So if you like the thrill of stolen bases, if you like to watch speed, go watch one of their games. Or if maybe they're on your schedule this season, I don't know, maybe try to figure out how to defend it. I don't know, just a thought. Thank you guys so much for listening. Like I said, I appreciate it more than you know. If there's anything you guys want to like talk about or you guys have questions, drop a comment on, the Spotify or YouTube, wherever you guys are watching. I love to hear different opinions and thoughts on things. It gives me the ability to kind of keep researching things and being able to like develop my own opinion and be able to defend my own opinion and stuff like that. It just makes for great content, and I really appreciate it as well. So yeah, let me know what you guys are interested in, different things that we can talk about as well. But go watch games. Go watch games. Go support women in sports. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.